surprise, I got a new motor. Check that out. So you're probably asking why did I get this motor? And no, I'm not motor swapping my truck. If you, for those of you guys who probably think that, this is actually was something I was doing homework at my girlfriend's college, and she was just cruising around on Craigslist for miscellaneous things, I guess. And she asked me, she's like, hey, you should buy this. And I was like, what is it? And she said, she starts reading off comp cam, bigger heads, the intake, and this, that, and the other. And I was like, huh, that sounds interesting. How much is that? Like $1,000? She said, oh no, it's $300. So I ended up driving out a couple of days later, in the middle of pretty much nowhere. It's one of those places you drive down in a pretty familiar area, but it just turns out to be one of those places that you didn't even know existed. So I ended up buying this, $300, like I said. It's a small block 289. I'm going to explain the parts from top to bottom in a second. But the reason I got this is not to motor swap my truck necessarily, but this has a couple key components that my truck's motor needed. As you know, my truck runs very well. It's my daily driver. It runs fine. There's nothing wrong with it. So why would I change the motor out for something like this that I have no idea what's inside of it? So I'm not motor swapping my truck, for those of you who might think that. This is actually a motor kind of build thing. I'm going to be salvaging parts off of this motor and then salvaging parts off of my motor and building two completely separate motors that'll pretty much be not brand new because I'm not pulling the internals out of mine, but I'm going to use these parts on the top end to build that motor, and then I'm going to actually fully rebuild this one because I think this one, he says, has low compression on cylinder 7. It was down to about 80 psi, so it could be rings, something like that. Not really sure, but I got to blow this thing apart anyways, just because that's, if it's on a stand, you might as well take it apart and see what's inside of it. And then the part with the heads, I'll go ahead and insert right now. Alright, so I just blew all of this apart to pull these out, which probably look like really rusty, destroyed heads off a small block. But the reason I needed these is because, as you can see right there, they are 289 heads, and I have a 302, and I'm going to explain why I need these in a second. So these being 289 heads, they actually have a lot smaller of a combustion chamber than 351 heads, and because of that, I can get more compression out of these heads than I can with the 351 heads. If I put the 351 heads on my 302 short block, I'd probably be running lower 9s, 8 to 1. I'd be running a lot lower than I should be. So putting the 289 heads on will give me a smaller combustion chamber, allowing me to get a higher compression ratio out. They're also a positive stop stud, which means I can adjust my rockers. So unlike the positive stop ones, to where if the stud starts to pull up a little bit out of the head, you can't tighten them down anymore. Your head's pretty much junk until you either get new studs or something along that. They need to be redone. I'll hopefully end up getting these machined or just refurbished to where I can use them again, because as you can tell, they've definitely been sitting a while, but these are the heads that I need to make my motor where I want it for right now. So those, like I said, were 289 heads. I'm sorry if it was a little bit hard to understand me. I had a cold and I could not talk for the life of me that day. Just my voice was not working. So those are 289 heads. They're, I think, 1967 heads. They're a positive stop, or no, not a positive stop. They're adjustable heads, which is not, these are positive stop, which means your rocker arm stud, you're tightening the nut down and then it just stops and they adjust themselves. The non-positive stop, which are the adjustable rocker arms, those ones you can tighten them and then you would do a running valve adjustment to where it would clatter. You loosen it, you tighten them all down, you would loosen it just to where it would start to clatter, and then I think you tighten it a quarter to a half turn depending on what you like, what your preference is. Unlike the positive stop, which is where when you tighten them down and then over time they start to clatter, like my 302 heads are doing right now, you can't really fix that without pulling a stud and rebuilding a head. But with the non-positive stop, the adjustable ones, you can just simply tighten it down a little bit more to get rid of the clatter, or vice versa, depending on what your heads are doing. So this motor has 351 heads, my motor has 302 heads. I pulled out 289 heads. You're probably wondering why these have 351 heads, but I've been pulling out a smaller head. That's to up the compression, because the stroke and bore on a 289, I'm pretty sure, will give me a higher compression with these heads than it would on my 302. I would get even lower than this. So if I stuck these 351 heads on my 302 without a dome top piston, I would be running a really ridiculously low, probably 9 to 1 ratio, something small like that wouldn't really be good. So the 289 head has a smaller combustion chamber, which will raise my compression to where I want it, and it'll also give me that adjustable rocker arm stud, that adjustable stud that'll allow me to adjust my valves the way I need them to. So that's the plus for those heads. So those heads, as you can see, were completely rusted. They're pretty much junk as is, but we're going to send those to a machine shop, get them checked out to make sure they are good, and hopefully I'll get them planed, cleaned up. They'll look brand new when they're done. I'm debating on if I want to port them or not, or if I can afford to port them, intake or exhaust. So we'll see. I'm not really sure yet. But, so going back to this, so what is this for? So starting top to bottom, this actually has a Edelbrock Performer RPM intake, which is a little bit taller rise than the stock factory one that I have. The Offenhauser one is pretty much flat on the top. So this one gives me like, I think 2 or 3 inches higher, so I can get a lot more velocity going. I can get a better, higher RPM range power out of this intake manifold. Then I have the 351 heads, which are very clean. I just lost all my washers. They're very clean. I got a 351 stamp up top. They're pretty much stock. I don't know what's been done to them on the bottom end. But the real key of this motor that I thought was very, very important is it actually has a comp cam 280 with a 512 lift. So that is like it's not like a total mother thumper cam, but I'm pretty sure small block Fords have a low 200, 100, high 100, low 200 range cam. That's pretty much what factory would run. This one is 280 cam. A mother thumper cam, like the really choppy ones, are high 200s, like 290, 292 is a mother thumper cam. I know that's one. That's a really choppy one that you can barely hear it idle. This is a 280 with 512 lift, which is a really, I think, right where I want to be, because it's pretty thumpy to where I want it, but it's not just too crazy to where I can't even start the thing in the morning. So I think this will be a really good cam for what I'm using, and it'll go really well with the heads that I'm using as well as the intake. So the bottom end of this motor is pretty much stock. It's just a regular 289 block. It's got low compression, so I pretty much get to start from scratch with that. I could say take this motor apart. I could put a dome top piston in this 289. I could put the 351 heads back on this motor, and I could end up putting my Offenhauser on it. I could have a really cool high compression 289 that would be a turnkey drop-in motor. Probably make a decent amount of horsepower, but it would be a really nice build. So I do want to make a video actually pulling a motor apart, because I've never done that kind of stuff. I've never done any of this kind of stuff for the most part. This will be something different for me, so have patience with me, because I might not be right. Some things I'm saying right now might even not be right, and you'll probably want to correct me in the comment section, but I've never experimented with this before, so be lenient with me. This is a whole new world for me, is getting into this stuff. I have my transmission sitting right over here. That's also planning to go in, so I'll get into that. So why did I buy the motor? Why did I buy the trans? Why did I buy all this stuff? And why is none of it getting in? You're probably asking yourself. I see so many updates with all these other trucks and other stuff, but you've bought, yes, I know I've bought frame rails. I've bought a Crown Vic front end. I've got an Explorer 88 rear end. I've got disc brake rear end. I've got my Tremec with a dual plate clutch. I've got a new bell housing. I've got all this fancy stuff that I got to put in. I can make my truck incredible if I had all this stuff in, but it's just like, why is it not happening? I'm going to say the same thing over and over again. It's because I didn't have a shop. I still don't have a necessary shop to be able to do something like my Crown Vic, because I want that to be done once, and I want it to be done right. So that's going to take a little bit of time. This, however, I can do. I can bring this down and work on this with my girlfriend's dad. He's an underbuilder. He'll show me how to do all this stuff. It'll be done right, which I really think is important to me. So we can go ahead, and I'm hoping I'll pull this intake off, clean it, paint it, make it look good. I will get the heads done. I will pull the cam out of this. I will take all the parts down, and we should be able to hopefully drive my truck down in there, pull everything apart, film it, put it all back together, and drive it out by the end of the day. I'm hoping that's what we can do. If not, it'll take 2 days, just because it gets dark around 5 in California right now. It's really bad. I don't really like that at all. It gives me no daytime to work on anything. But I wanted this motor to be a little bit more. It just seems really slow to me, really sluggish. I'm also going to try to change the thermostat in it. Hopefully I can get it to cool down a little bit. I just want this thing to run a lot better. I'm also going to have to put shocks in the rear, because my shocks are all 4 of my shocks are blown. If you've ever seen my truck in person, if you lean on it, it just smushes down. It is the worst riding truck on the planet because of how soft the suspension is. It pretty much like I might as well just take all 4 of my shocks out. I'm just riding on springs. It's terrible. So I gotta put a shock in the rear, because right now I get absolutely horrid axle hop. If I clutch kick around a corner, it will just shoot my head through the back window. So I need to put a shock in it to stiffen up the rear end to be able to hold a little bit more power like this. So I have to do that regardless. So expect that. But the downside of all this is I'm not going to be starting absolutely any of this. I'm not even going to be taking parts off of this motor until I get other projects settled. Now what I mean by that is I own 2 other trucks, my 1973 C10 and I own my 1971 Ford F-250, as you guys have seen me just recently purchase. Now those 2 vehicles are projects that were just supposed to be documented kind of buy them. They're not really nice. Make them a little bit nicer, sell them, make my money back, put them in other projects. So those trucks need to get done before I start another project. I'm one of those people that want to finish one project before I lead into another, and those ones definitely need to get done. The C10 needs a couple interior things. It needs to be cleaned. I got a couple things I got to fix. I got to put the brake lights back in it. It's leaky. It leaked a lot of transmission fluid. I just recently dropped the pan, resealed the pan, put a new Transpan gasket, put that back on. But I think I fixed that finally, so it should be good structurally to drive and be a decently reliable off-road truck. So I want to get that one. Then I got to sand a couple of spots on the truck. I was going to originally paint the truck. I was going to go all out, make a custom bumper, fix the cage, do all this cool stuff. But me being in school, I just do not have the time to do so. So it would just be smart for me to go ahead and just touch up some of the paint that was on it. Go ahead and make the truck look a decent amount, clean, get it detailed, maybe throw a couple miscellaneous things on it that I didn't before, and then go ahead and put it up on the internet and see what I can get out of it. Now, once that is done, I move into the F-250. The F-250 I bought for very, very cheap, and it's got its work cut out for it. It's very, very beat up. It was a roofing company truck, so heavy roof equipment and roof tiles were chucked in that truck. People were standing on the roof. That's why the roof is dented in. The hood flew up and blew up on the roof and bent the hood, and it's got all sorts of dings and dents on it. It's really, really rough. But that truck, I'm hoping it's got receipts for a rebuilt motor and trans, like I said in the end of that video. So it's got less than 20,000 miles on the motor and trans, which is a positive side. And I know a couple junkyards that I can go to that I might be able to swing a bed for $200. I can get a long bed for it. That's straight. I'm hoping. And I can also get a new hood for it for, I don't know, maybe around $100. So I'm hoping I can get that done. And then I'll have a straight bed, a straight hood, and then I can pound and tack weld the roof back together. So the roof was smashed in and the brace kind of fell, so I can go ahead and push the roof back up, tack weld the brace back on, and it'll keep the roof up. The roof might have a couple ripples in it, but it's a work truck. What do you really want it to do? So then I got to clean up. I got to power wash the motor, clean the interior. There's trash, all sorts of stuff in there. I want to detail the whole interior, exterior, make the truck look good. It actually has a very, very nice and vibrant paint underneath it. It just needs, the dust needs to be whacked off of it. I'm going to bring Sean over here. He's going to detail the whole truck. It'll look really good. I'll show you guys how to spice your paint up like that. It'll be a really fun time. And then that truck will get put up for sale, and then we'll see what we can get out of that one. But the main purpose of that one was to show you guys how you can clean the truck up in maybe a week or two without very much time or money or effort. So that's a whole build series on its own. But those are getting done before this gets touched, because I'm not having 4 or 5 plus projects before I finish my first one, if that makes sense. I mean, I'm sure you guys can understand that. I didn't even expect to buy the F-250. It just came up. It was an incredibly good deal. I had to go look at it. Had cash in hand. I went and bought it that day. But it's because I brought that in, some things are going to take a little bit longer because that one needs to get out. So once those 2 trucks are out, I have some money floating around. I want to start getting on my white truck. Now, all my friends are telling me that my transmission is getting in. People are going to kidnap me and kill me if I don't put this transmission in over Christmas break. So I am in college and I'm just finishing up finals. I have 2 more finals this next week, then I'm done. And then we're on Christmas break, and I can go ahead and I can sit down and I have some time to make videos for you guys again. So I'll be on a regular upload schedule, hopefully every 3 days. Hopefully I can get it to where every 2 days, if not every day, I can put a video up. That's kind of my goal because I'll have time. But the transmission needs to get in over break, and because I think I have just about everything, but I need to fabricate my own cross member for it. So if you guys have ever seen 5-speed swaps and bump sides, you have to make a cross member, or they sell a kit, but it's over $1,000 for just a cross member, and I just think that's absolutely insane. So I'm gonna have to fab up and make my own cross member, so hopefully that'll be good. And I need to get this transmission in, but I'm scared, because it's my daily driver. I don't want to just rip it apart. So we'll see how that goes, but I really, really do want to get that in within the next month. I want to get this transmission in, well within the next month. So hopefully that gets in. Then once the 2 vehicles are sold, my transmission gets in, I think I'm ready to start moving into this. Because then I've cleared everything out, I've got some cash flowing, I can start working with this. I'll figure out what the story is with the heads. We'll move into whether I want to port the heads, just get them clean, flat plane them, whatever. And then we'll start pulling this motor apart, painting and cleaning up parts on here, and miscellaneous things like that. We will probably bring the 2 parts together and we'll do the whole motor build at once, and it'll be one big scenario where we're pulling all the parts out of this motor and onto my truck. So it'll be one big fiasco getting the parts off this motor and onto that one. and then I have my motor upgrade, my trans, and my truck's pretty much done at the moment. Once these motor upgrades are, like the comp cam, the heads, and all the miscellaneous other things are on my motor with the 5-speed, I'm pretty much set for a good amount of time. So that means I'll be running a decent power setup on a terrible suspension setup. So I'm going to have to put shocks in the rear, or like I said, I will get axle hop. And that kind of leads me into where I start to put my time into the Crown Vic setup. So I'm looking around for shop spaces that I can use. Once I find a shop space, my stuff is getting thrown on a trailer. We are getting it moved in there, and I'm going to start putting all this stuff together. I've never put a front end in. It's kind of like putting a Mustang 2 in, but I've never done any of that stuff. So I really want someone there that knows what they're doing, that can assist me with that kind of stuff. So once that build starts, though, we're pretty much, for a matter of months, going full force on getting a Crown Vic under my truck. And at that same time, I will have some extra cash left over that I will be able to bring, maybe not a bump side truck, but another project here for you guys, so we can have updates on a separate project while I'm doing my big F100 project, you know. So that's kind of where we're headed. So I'll go ahead and I'll just show the parts off of the motor. So like I said, it's a Performer RPM, not an air gap, but just Performer RPM dual plane. I can't take this off. It's a dual plane manifold. Got the 1-inch spacer. I don't even think I'm going to use that. But the heads are very clean underneath. You can see the 351 stamp right there, and then the Ford stamp right there. I don't know if you guys can see that. And then underneath it, it's got a comp cam in it. So I'm not really sure the condition of the underside of the motor. I'm hoping everything's as solid as he said. It just seemed to have one low compression on one cylinder, so he pulled the whole motor out, put a different motor in it because he had one. But I don't know. You know how Craigslist goes. It could be anything. So we'll see with that. Then all the spare parts that I get out of the motor build-ish, I guess, will go back onto this motor. This motor will get rebuilt, and hopefully I'll have a decently streetable 289 turnkey motor that I can drop in any vehicle. That's the golden plan. So I'm sorry if this video is a little bit boring or dragged out, just because I'm just spewing everything. I thought there was a lot of questions that needed to be answered, so I wanted to answer them now because I am sitting down and finally talking about stuff. So this is the new project that I will be taking on after the other two vehicles are done. So don't expect this anytime soon, but I do want to make sure that the other two trucks are out of the way before I start another project. As you could probably understand, I don't want to start a project when I have other ones going on. So this will be a really fun project. It'll be, the whole motor will get blown apart, and the parts that I need will go on my truck. The spare parts that come off of my truck will go back into this one. We'll probably fully end up rebuilding this motor, and I'll have a turnkey 289 small block with whatever upgrades I have left over, ready to drop into any vehicle. I hope I have a brand new motor sitting here by the end of all this. So let me know what you think down below. What do you think I should do with this motor? I'm sorry if I made little miscellaneous errors in explaining how the heads worked and this and that. I'm sure you can understand. I've never done this kind of stuff. I'm new to all this. But regardless, let me know what you think down below of the build and all the other miscellaneous projects I got going on. Let me know what you want to see. I do know I take a note to a lot of people want to see me drive my truck, so I'm really, really sorry. I need to order a new suction cup mount so I can actually mount it. The reason I don't film very much of me driving is because I don't have anywhere to put the camera. So as you saw when I bought my truck and I put the camera on the floor, it just flew off and just landed in the passenger seat. So it's rough for me to film, but I'm going to fix that. So let me know what you think down below about everything that you've seen here. Like the video, please. I would really, really, really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.